Hi there, Totallydubbed over here, also known as Siege2U on RuneScape, and I thought to do a video guide on Zuk. Now this guide is going to be really aimed for beginners like myself, because I'd consider myself a beginner, and I just want to try and make this as accessible as possible. It's also not someone that's coming with a maxed out account, 99 in every single skill or 120, but rather someone who has a bit more modest skills. It's because I've been out for RuneScape for over 9 years, I came back to it, I watched a bunch of guides, got absolutely destroyed in Zuk, and then I thought, maybe why don't I just make my own guide? So let me go through the setup. Now first off, in terms of my own stats, I've got 90 attack, 87 strength, 80 range, 85 mage, 97 constitution. I have also got 105 necro and 100 herblore. Now what I would highly suggest for this run is for you to at least have the ability to make some overload potions. You don't need level 96, you can have, let's say, level 92 or 90 or something like that, and then be boosted via a core, and then you can make yourself overloads. Overloads are going to be quintessential, specifically if you've got lower stats like myself. In other words, the range and the mage is not up there with some of the other stats that you might have. And also the other one is Necromancy. You're going to want to have over level 90 Necromancy for the gear, the T90 gear, and also just because you're going to have a bit more abilities. So that just gives you a little bit of an indication. This is of course a Necro guide because I am in Necro gear, and this is what I would highly suggest, specifically if you're going to be quite new to the game or at least getting used to Zuk for the first time. Necromancy is really accessible for that reason. Now in terms of my gear, I have got the Zuk cape, but I did it with the Kiln cape. It's the Necro Kiln cape, which you're probably going to want to have. It's very easy to do the Kiln fight caves. Very much suggest to do that so that you have some extra damage. I've got Amulet of Souls, but you can replace this with the Blood Amulet of Fury. I've got the Asylum Sergeant Ring. Again, you can replace this with any other DPS-ish ring, but this is one that I have, which was free via quest. I've got the Death Guard and the Skull Lantern and full T90 tank gear. So it's not the power gear, the tank gear is a lot more accessible. You should be able to attain this specifically if you want to get into Zuk. You should have probably learnt a little bit of mechanics from other bosses, therefore that should be pretty accessible. Then you've also got the Illuminated God Book, and I've also got the regular Nexus, which is filled with runes and ectoplasm. You want to make sure this is actually full with roughly 1,500 runes slash ectoplasm, because you do not want to be running dry inside there, because you'll have to restart and you won't be able to attack anything. Now in terms of my inventory, I have got a singular overload, I've got adrenaline potion, a prayer flask, 5 super restores, a bunch of Saradomin brews, a bunch of sailfish, and I've also got enhanced Excalibur, vulnerability bombs, and then also, very importantly, the TzKal-Zuk ring, which is charged. 4,000 charges there. That's exactly what you're going to want. You want to make sure this is fully charged. You can do this if you want by teleporting to the main area, and you can charge it over there. Now in terms of the revolution bar, this is going to be also very important. There is going to be some manual input in this, despite some of the guides that suggest you don't need any manual input whatsoever. Sure enough, if you're 120 in every single skill, you can soul split and you can just have the revo bar do everything. However, if you are like myself, you're going to have to be doing some manual input, and because of Zuk, I actually learnt how to do a bit more manual input and learning a little bit about stacks and the likes of how many residual souls I have. But anyway, here I have got Conjure Undead Army. If you don't have this, you can just negate it, but you'll certainly want to have the Ghost and the Skeleton so that you can command them as well in your Revo bar, and then you want your basic Necro abilities. In terms of the setup over here, you can see I've almost bound it to my keyboard, and this is really handy. It saves you from like looking over here and then going down to know what to click. If you just have your hands in the right place, for example for me, I've come from a lot of FPS gaming, so WASD is very natural. That's what I kind of went for. So I kind of went around WASD and went from there. Of course, if you have a different setup or different way of holding the keyboard, if that makes sense, then go for whatever you feel best. Now, things you'll absolutely need are going to be the likes of Bloat. You're going to want to have a Death Grasp as well, Finger of Death, Threads of Faith, Volley of Souls. You're going to want Soul Split if possible. If not, you're certainly going to want to use the Deflect Curses, or of course just a regular prayer, so a magic and range, and you might also want melee. You will also want to have Invoke Death. This is going to be super handy for speeding up some of the kills. And then you're also certainly going to want Surge and also Freedom. The other ones that are going to be super handy are going to be Darkness, which is going to be really good for you having a little bit of extra ability of dodging some incoming attacks. And then for one of the challenges, you're going to want to have Resonance, Barricade, and also Greater Bone Shield. You could potentially do this with Lesser Bone Shield, but I just did it with Greater Bone Shield, and therefore gave me a bit more peace of mind. Now you also see via the run that I had a familiar that was filled with a singular overload, 5 super restores, and the rest of them were Saradomin and Bruise. You can go for a, let's say, Blood Reaver or a Hellhound, but extra food gives me extra the extra ability of knowing that I will be able to survive the run, and that's what I went for. So with all of that, the next thing to make sure is that you go into your layout mode. This is not actually emphasized enough, but you certainly want to go in your layout mode, and you want to make sure that you are aware of how your layout looks like. Specifically, the buff and debuff bars are absolutely essential for you to know what is going on. And the next thing that's going to be really important is the extra action button. This is really important when it comes to Zuk. You're certainly going to want to know where this is, so make sure it is positioned in a way that you have, well, an indication of where it is. There's also the info box. This is super handy as well when it comes to HarAken. You want to make sure that this is an area that you feel comfortable with so that you can see it yourself. You don't have to be scrambling around the screen and knowing what it is. These are really essential for you to know that, and it's super handy to do that as prerequisites. Now, another prerequisite would be that before you start your Zuk run and you just jump in, of course this will be after, hopefully you watched the guide, is to pot up at the bank to, for example, warm your hands at the campfire if you're at the War's Retreat. Make sure your prayer point and summoning points are maxed out, so you can, you know, pray at the altar or somewhere else, doesn't matter. I was doing it in Lumbridge before. Just make sure everything is done before you go in, so that you're not actually using any sort of potions and things when you first start out. It just gives you a little bit of extra peace of mind. So now that you are potted up, I'm now going to be showing you a flawless Zuk run on normal mode. It's not going to be flawless from my point of view, but it's going to be flawless for you to get all the challenges complete, and it'll also unlock hard mode. You don't need to have a flawless run for you to get the stones which are required for you to upgrade your cape, so just worth bearing that in mind. If you do fail the challenges, it's not the end of the world, but why not try and do the challenges at the same time? But again, if you fail the challenges, just keep on going with the run. More than anything, practice will make perfect. I did a multitude of Zuk runs, and I died so many times at Zuk until I was able to learn the mechanics myself and also able to understand what my limitations were. Now, you can see over here that the corner over here on the southeast corner is going to be absolutely essential for you to use on a numerous amount of runs. In fact, majority of your runs you're going to be stuck over here because it just gives you some extra peace of mind. What I found is some other guides, when they're going out and about, I was getting absolutely destroyed, even with Soul Split and even protecting from mage or range. It was absolutely really killing me. Now, you might have also noticed that when I started the run, I straight away invoked Darkness, and I also did Blood Siphon as well. This just gave the conjure some extra time on the field. This will only be handy in the initial phases of the runs, purely because you have the ability of healing up pretty quickly. Here you might be wondering, how is it on Earth that multiple enemies are taking hit at once? It's because I am using the Threads of Faith. It's a reminder, it's keybound to S on my keyboard, and then using Finger of Death, and that means it wipes out the waves very, very quickly. So what's going to be really essential over here is that you're going to be camping at the southeast corner, taking your time and letting the enemies come to you. But of course, not all the enemies want to play ball. You can see over here, as I just skipped through, there are certain enemies that are going to be stuck behind certain things, and you're just going to have to make your way out. That's absolutely fine. Now, wave 3 was pretty much the same thing. You just want to be targeting, for example, the bats, and then getting on to the others. For me, I actually ended up targeting majority of the rangers first in my runs, and you'll see why very shortly. So as we skip through a little bit more, to get to wave 4, this will be one of the first igneous waves, and the igneous waves are required for you to get to damage Zook. Now, you can see over here, I've gone again to the corner, and I have also gonna be conjuring my getting the conjures ready, and then stunning the igneous mobs. Stunning them, and you might be wondering, how are you doing that? Well, I'm pressing my keybound of Y, and that gives me soul sap, which effectively allows me to stun the igneous mobs. Now, this is absolutely required for you to damage them. You're going to need to stun these guys specifically, so make sure that you are aware of that. Something I didn't mention at the beginning, that yes, soul sap is actually really important because it is required to stun. You can see here right now I am praying from melee in order to prevent taking too much damage. Now, before getting to Zook, I'm just going to pause over here. You can see that I quickly switched between the ring. I switched between the Totallydubbed ring, and then I went to the Asylum ring. The reason behind that is because Zook does not take damage from, it doesn't take extra damage from the Totallydubbed ring, so the Asylum ring is going to give me some extra DPS. I am also then switching to Soul Split. You might be wondering why when I'm on full HP. It's because I can initiate a Split Soul. So if you have that, all well and good. If you don't, you can ignore this, but it just gives you extra DPS. So just resuming over here, you can see I am attacking the regular mobs, and you might be wondering again, why am I attacking the regular mobs? I'm at 100 adrenaline, I've got full stacks available. Why am I doing this? Well, the reason why is because my conjures died, and then I just wanted to make sure that they were fully up, so now I can hit that special action button, which, as you remember, you want to have it in a position where it's really accessible to you. And for example, over here I have it right above the inventory, and it makes it very easy to press. So here you can see that I threw a vulnerability bomb just to give myself some extra damage, and here you can see that I'm just damaging Zook as much as possible. You want to get him to 550,000, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I miss it on the first run, which is absolutely fine. You still get a flawless run. So it just means that you have to repeat the igneous waves, and well, that's not a bad thing. I can sometimes build up a little bit more adren, or make sure I've got some extra stacks and soul. So I'm going to skip through this bit because it's the exact same as we did before, and then we're going to get on to Zook. So now we get on to Zook. Now you might be wondering what happens over here. Well, this is the first challenge. The first challenge, again, is not required for you to do it for you to get your cape, but would be handy, for example, if you want to unlock the hard mode, or indeed if you just don't want to take as much damage. Now, for you to do this, you effectively just want to make sure that you have got the Invoke Death pressed just as you are moving towards the middle of your screen, and then that you click Threads of Faith, or of course press the keybind, and then press Finger of Death on one of the sides, which you'll be able to see right now what it's going to do. It's going to kill off 2 of the mobs, and then I'm going to go to the other side of the room, hit Finger of Death again, and it's going to kill 2 of them, and then I've just got 1 to mop up, and therefore means that I've got enough time to kill off all the enemies. Now, next up, I am switching straight away to Protect from Mage and going towards the corner. Why is that? Because there's going to be a Jad that's going to be spawning. It could actually hit me quite hard, and therefore I Protect from Mage or range is going to be recommended. I surge all the way towards the corner, and then the Jad is going to be spawning in this corner as well. Some people actually recommend staying in the north west corner, but in my case I actually found it's easier over here because less of the mobs are attacking me. So I'm attacking Jad, but then now I am concentrating on those small little bats just to have them killed off, because they can drain even though they're from afar, and then prayer switching using my keyboard. So you can see here I'm not using my mouse, I'm just using my keyboard to switch between the two. I kind of shift my hands towards the middle of my keyboard in order to make sure that's the case. I also invoked death on Jad, so it just gives me a bit of a faster kill. You can see I'm taking absolutely no damage, and there we go, it is all done. So I'm just going to skip through this part because, well, it's actually pretty simple. You want to do the same that you were doing before, protect from range or mage, depending on what you're getting attacked from. Now, these big rangers with the kind of red boots as such are a little bit tricky. Not only are they harder hitting, but if they are standstill for a while, they will build up stacks and then they will hit you even harder. So what you will be able to notice is that at times I'm using my abilities to kill them off a bit quicker so that they just deal a little less damage. Even through protect from range, I found that sometimes these guys would hit something and it just was not fun or pleasant whatsoever. So it just gave me that extra bit of peace of mind and just the ability of just making sure that they are dealt with pretty quickly. Then I targeted the mage, which over here you can see, the another ranger, the smaller ranger, and then the mage over here, and then the big guy, because the other guys are lured behind. Hopefully that makes sense, but effectively it just means that you're just clearing up the mobs separately. Now you can see over here that there is a fire, a kind of lava thing coming out. If you were to stand too close to this, or indeed directly into it, you're going to be hitting a lot of typeless magic damage. Now you can protect from mage for this, but you will also find some burning that is occurring. For you to avoid that, you will want to use freedom. It will negate that from happening, but then if you still stand into the lava, then it's going to happen again. So just bear that in mind. Just realize that you do not want to be standing in the center of that fire because, well, you can be left with a lot of extra damage that's coming out of nowhere. Now wave 8 is much of the same. You can see over here, look, I'm being attacked from a variety of different angles, but I'm going to be trying to mop them up in different ways. For example, here I stand behind this little rock, just as you can see, the small little pointy rock, and this means it lures the guys who are towards the west to come a little bit more forwards and therefore make them attackable. If I don't do that, I'll have to run around and then suddenly I'll be left a bit more exposed. So yet again, breaking up the different enemies really makes a massive difference in terms of you surviving and also you taking a little less damage. So skipping through this because, well, it's just much of the same of attacking. You can see over here, I just lured the two rangers. Instead of building up their stacks, I moved them around. And yes, you can see I moved around a little bit from the fire pit over here, the lava that's coming out, so that I just don't take that type plus damage unnecessarily. So now we're going to get on to the next round. And this is going to be one of the next igneous waves. The first one's going to spawn right next to you, and in order for you to attack it, you're going to want to use one of the threshold abilities. I suggest using bloat because keeping your finger of death or your stacks, necrosis stacks up, is going to be handy for the next challenge. But feel free to use finger of death once at least, maybe from the first one, and then using bloat for the next two. So yes, there is a total of 3 of them. You can see over here I use bloat. And you want to protect from range because they're all rangers over here. There's no melee or mages whatsoever. You can see over here I also invoke death because I found that it just makes it a bit quicker. I seem to be taking a lot of damage from these rangers just generally, and having the ability to kill them off a little bit quicker, well, it makes it all that bit better. A little tip over here, if you do notice that you're taking a bit too much damage and you're wondering why this is the case and why you have to eat a bit more, it could be because, for example, your overload has run out and therefore you're just going to have to top up your overload. It just gives you a bit more defense from taking so much damage from the rangers. So you can see over here I'm potting up. Again, nothing wrong with that. Use a bit of food and make sure you hit your super restore so that when it comes to attacking you still have all the right stats. And you can see over here I'm going to be now switching over to my ring, and I should have used a soul split, which I do, a split soul, and then hit the button and then vulnerability bomb if possible, and then use only your souls rather than any of the stacks. The stacks are going to be really required for the next challenge, so you're going to want to make sure you keep them. So instead I am using volley of souls only. So I used a 3 volley of souls, so when it's built up to 3, that's when you want to ideally use it, and you want to get him down to a 500k hit points. And you can see over here I'm waiting for it to rack up, and then I hit it again, a volley of souls. Now for the next part, I actually really struggled with this because all the guides I saw were pretty much dealing with this big guy very easily, but that was not the case for me. Now what I do is I protect from melee because he hits with melee. I invoke death, so that's X on my keyboard, and then I also I should be switching ring. So in this respect, I'm going to be switching ring at the last moment, as you saw over there. Then I hit the vulnerability bomb. Then next up, I am going to be hitting him with Finger of Death, which will use 6 of my necrosis stacks. And the reason why is because this guy only takes damage over 3,000. So if you hit him over 3,000 damage, you will be damaging him. If you don't, for example, any of your conjurers, they won't be damaging whatsoever. And you'll be able to see this because, look, if you see this, say 1,296 damage, it's not actually taking any of his health points down. So in order to do that, you want to make sure you are dealing big damage. So the next one I do is the Death Grasp for my special attack, and you can see over here it dealt a whopping 9,000 damage instead. And then finally, to round it off, I use Finger of Death even though I've got no stacks available, and that effectively gives me 4,000 damage, and because I invoke death, I get to kill this guy off. This guy was a massive challenge for me, but doing this combination, in other words, invoke death, vulnerability bomb, making sure your ring is on the right one, then doing Finger of Death, then your weapon special, and then Finger of Death will ensure that this guy dies. I tried it multiple times and this combination worked flawlessly without any issues. And you can see over here I'm full health points. You might be wondering why again have I switched over to Mage Protect, and this is because now we're going to have 2 Jads spawn. But if you go on the southeast corner, these Jads are going to be completely irrelevant up until the last part of the round itself. You can see over here I'm just targeting them, and you can see here that the 2 Jads have just spawned. So I'm just going to skip through this part because this is actually very easy. You've just got a lot of mages, and then we're going to get onto the Jads, and the Jads are yet again very simple. You'll be able to see over here that I just noticed something that I was like, oh, I'm running low. I'm just going to brew up a little bit just to make sure that all my stats are, all my health is up top, so if I do get hit from a Jad, I don't have to panic too much. And I'm going to be invoking death before I get to Jad, and then attacking Jad as you normally would do. So range and mage protect, as you normally would expect, and then he dies off pretty quickly, and then the other Jad is over here. A little tip, make sure you run next to Zook and then attack the Jad, because if you just click on the Jad, it might run right next to the Jad, and then he might then be in melee distance, and then be attacking you in melee distance. So just bear that in mind. So for the next Jad, you can also invoke death if you want. If not, just kill him off regularly. You've just only got him to worry about, and that is absolutely it. So then we get onto the next rounds. You can see over here you have got a combination of the mage and rangers. This time you've got the big boy mages as well, which are going to hit you, and they're also going to hit you for typeless damage. And in order for you to avoid that, you're going to want to use the likes of freedom again. So again, just break them up as much as possible. Go to your strength. Make sure that you are protecting from the right thing that is hitting you the most, and just keep on going. Remember, the ranger is going to build up stacks. You can see he's not attacking, and so I don't have to be worried about him. And now he's attacking, so when I see that, I switch to him in order to attack him, and I try and dispatch of him very quickly. So when it comes to the mages, you can see over here there's some typeless damage. You can see it towards the debuff bar over here. There is certain damage that is occurring that will go over time, but this is because of the mages. It's kind of the same of sitting in that lava bit. I like the dispatch of these guys again pretty quickly using some abilities, or indeed invoking death. You can see right now I've got my mouse hovered over the freedom because it effectively gets rid of that damage. I then use soul split to get some extra health from this mage, and the same applies for this mage up top. The same sort of principle. So the next round, yet again, same sort of principle. You just want to be breaking them down. You can see there's a lot of guys that do spawn. So at the southeast corner, you will get that mage that spawns. That should be your first priority. Dispatch of it, and then you have got now these other mobs. You can see some of them are trapped, so you don't have to worry about them too much. Don't run to them, let them come to you. And of course, do take your time with it. So for example, right now I was just standing behind that rock and just making sure that I got my conjures up. You can see now I'm getting hit by the mage. The mage hits harder in my opinion than the big ranger, and as a result I am praying from mage. You can see over here I'm just trying to camp. I am brewing up while the mage is no longer attacking me, but just notice over here what's happening. The conjures are actually attacking the mage, and by the time I actually step out, the mage is actually going to be really low HP. I have fully brewed up. I don't have to worry about anything, and I'm actually doing a bit of management over here for future rounds with my Beast of Burden, and you can see over here just a few extra hits is going to finish this guy off. So as we move over, you can see right now I just walked a bit to the east in order to lure out this ranger, and then this ranger therefore has no longer any stacks, and also means that he's on his own, so it makes it easier to kill because I can just be praying from range and not having to worry about the rest of it. So again, we're going to skip over to the mage, and then finally there's this mage over here as well who's going to be attacking me. So the next round is another Igneous challenge. This one is actually pretty simple. You just want to be praying from mage. You can soul split as well, but you want to be standing in this red bubble and attacking. What I found is that I was always invoking death just as I was standing inside before I could really damage the mage, and that meant that once I did start damaging it, I didn't have to then worry about invoking death because I'd already done that, so therefore the mage is now going to be taking some hits. Again, you want to be making sure that you stand inside the red bubble, because if you don't, then it's not going to be surrounding, it's not going to be taking away its shield, so making sure that you can attack it. You can see over here I'm brewing up because, well, again, why not? Then I'm surging off to this one because it just means I can get to that a little bit quicker. So making sure I'm brewed up, making sure my stats are up, making sure that the overload is there, making sure that darkness is indeed initiated. All things like this will make sure that you have got some extra peace of mind. So yet again, I switched to my more attacking DPS sort of roundup, soul split on, build up, insta kill, and start hitting TzKal-Zuk, vulnerability bomb, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll do it in a singular phase. Again, if you don't, that's not a problem or whatsoever. You can just do it over again. You can see over here I just about got 450k. Now the next challenge is going to require you to have the resonance and the barricade abilities, and also that greater bone shield. You want to make sure that greater bone shield has been activated, be it at the beginning of the TzKal run or now. Make sure you press that button right now because you're going to need to do it. So you can see over here I'm protecting from mage. I then am going to have my mouse over the resonance ability, and as soon as it attacks right there, I am hitting resonance. Then I am waiting for the secondary attack, and then I hit barricades. Now it is important over here to note that barricade takes a 100% of your adrenaline. So therefore, when I was attacking TzKal before, I was only attacking with Volley of Souls. I was not using any of my Necrosis stacks, in other words, Finger of Death, because that will take some of my adrenaline. Sure enough, I could build up the adrenaline again, but I did not want to risk it. So therefore, I just went with Volley of Souls only to make sure I had 100% adrenaline, purely because I wanted to make sure that I had that barricade ability available. So you can see over here, I just tanked the hits. I'm not doing anything other than standing still, and because of barricade and resonance, I complete the challenge. Just in case you're wondering, at the bottom left hand side of my screen, at least, you can see the chat. It says, "It appears you have exceeded my expectations." If it does that, then it means that you've passed a challenge. If you didn't do it properly, or for example you got your timings a little bit off, it will say you have failed as expected. Again, no big deal if you're just going for the cape, but if you do want to complete all the challenges, this will be required. So just pausing over here, you can see that 3 Jads have spawned, and yes, I fought them all at the same time once before. Not a fun experience, including fighting 2 at the same time. Not fun either, especially when you are like myself and not hitting that much extra DPS. It is quite painful to be switching between prayers, but it is plausible. But why do all of that when you can actually fight one at a time? Yes, indeed, you can see the top one has just stuck. It's got stuck at the top rock, and the other one is stuck at the rock at the northeast. So northeast and northwest are stuck, and all the one I have to worry about is the one towards the south. And yet again over here, it's going to be pretty simple, invoking death if required, and just going through your prayer flicking in order to kill it. So it's just pretty simple. The Jads have no ability to hit you, but if they do, by the way, they'll hit you for roughly 8,000. 5 to 8,000 is what I found, and just means that you will have to be eating up, which can be a little bit panicky at times, but if you just do the prayer flicking properly, then you won't have to worry whatsoever. You can see over here I'm even managing my own Beast of Burden because I'm getting prepped up for the next rounds, and even combining pots as well, while also just checking for the prayer flicking. So you can do this, it's actually quite chill. Just one thing to note, I forgot to switch my ring. Switching to the other ring rather than my Asylum ring would have given me some extra DPS against these Jads. I think I realize a little bit after when I get to HarAken, which is going to be our next guy. So here I have now killed the Jad. I straight away switched to Soul Split because I want to go to Split Soul again. If you don't have Split Soul, you're still going to want to use Soul Split because you just want to be healing a lot on this, and you're not going to take much damage. You're not going to actually have to eat too much food, but there might be some times where you actually eat food. That's not the end of the world. So HarAken is going to spawn either on the east or the west front. It's always the same, as in east or west, but it is very much random as to where he spawns, including if you have to phase him a secondary time, which you will notice that I will have to do. So what I'm doing over here is that I've got Split Soul on. I should have switched to my other ring, which I didn't, and then I'm also going to be dropping all the specials on him. So I've got Death Skulls. You can do Living Death. Maybe Living Death will be quite handy, and also the weapon special and all that stuff. You might have noticed there that I moved, and I'm going to explain that very soon, because there's these lava pools that end up jumping out next to HarAken, and this also happens when HarAken is not around. You can see there's a little bubble building up there on his left hand side, and it shoots up in the air. It literally takes 1 second to do this, so you have to be very quick and very attentive to it, so there's a lot to be taking in. But as soon as that goes, you step to the left or right, and you can see that that blob sits where you were previously positioned when that lava went up. If you don't, it's going to hit you for 1,500, so not massive, but it's going to drain some of your adrenaline, which is a bit of a pain because it means that you're not going to be able to use as much of your abilities. So it's not the end of the world, but just worth bearing that in mind. Now for HarAken, make sure you've invoked death if you haven't already. It's always good doing that before you even approach him. And you can see over here, I can't do him in a single phase, unlike a lot of the guides which do it always in a single phase. I couldn't do it. You can see over there, I just got a little pop-up to say my adrenaline was drained a little bit. And yes, indeed, that was because I didn't move when that little lava bubble went up in the air and came down. So now we're just going to be attacking the tentacles. But you'll be able to see over here, there's a little pop-out that says HarAken is bombarding you. Look out. And you can see all these lava pools building up. You'll only want to move 3 tiles to the north, west, east or south from where you were currently standing, but I've had it at times where it didn't actually do it properly. So as a result of that, as a precaution, I just surge away. You can see how far I was away from that. Now, if you were not to move, you will pretty much not be almost one hit KO'd, but close to it, specifically if you weren't full HP. So bear that in mind, that it can hit really hard, and it's something that's absolutely avoidable, very, very easily avoidable. You just have to be paying attention. Don't worry about the enemies. Make sure you check for that X, for that bombarding. And also, again, for those lava pools, you can see over there that it drains some of my adrenaline. Yet again, over here, it's going to be popping out. You can see I'm running already. I didn't even have to surge away. I was very far from it. You can see here I was waiting because I knew that 2 bombardments away, HarAken's going to spawn, either left or right. I wasn't sure, but you can see over here, he spawns on this corner again. And yet again, I'm just going to be hitting him with, not say everything, but the majority of things, because I can save up some of my stacks and, for example, my souls when it comes to Zook. I know he's going to be dying pretty soon, but even then, I still actually use a Finger of Death because I just want to make sure that I don't have to phase him yet again, because it's just a kind of waste of time, and I just want to just get rid of him as soon as possible so that I can get to Zook himself. And then, because I invoke death, he dies. So right now, just as the tentacles are up, I still leave Soul Split on. I then switch my ring, and then I'm going to be switching to protect from melee. I'm going to be potting up, making sure everything is up, and then I'm going to be getting ready for Zuk to drop. Now you can build on Zuk if you want, but in my case, I find that just sitting here just gives me a bit more peace of mind just to collect myself, make sure everything's ready before I start attacking him. So we're going to start off by attacking Zuk. You can see over here, I'm going to throw a vulnerability bomb and try and attack him. Now, when he says you break beneath me, you're going to want to hit freedom. So freedom means that you don't get any of that typeless damage. If you don't do that, you'll get a lot of the typeless damage, like you saw, for example, with the lava pools before, or indeed with the big mages. Zuk is going to basically damage you. Now, this bit, burn or sear. Now, a lot of the guides that you see online will just basically say surge, and then surge away again, like double surge. The issue with that, at least for me, is the fact that I've only got a singular surge. So I can't do that because the next mechanic definitely requires you to surge away. So as a result, I just stand there still and I just keep an eye out on my hit points. The life points will be draining because it effectively drains your total life points, and you shouldn't be confused with the amount of life points that you've got available just above your action bar, but rather looking at your stats, just making sure that that sear is not constantly affecting you. So now we get onto the next mechanic. So you can see over here, I've fully potted up with the super restore, and he says tremble before me. He's going to hit. As soon as he hits, you want to surge kind of behind him. Now, if you surge away too far away, he's going to kind of click his finger, like kind of like a Thanos type of click, and he's going to be hitting you with a mage hit. So you might want to protect from mage and then switch back to protect from melee. Just worth bearing that in mind. So like right there, look, he's just switched to magic. I am too slow with this, but then he hits me. It doesn't hit me for massive amounts, but it's still worth mentioning that it still hits me. Now you can see these explosions that are happening on the side, and that is from where he hit his sword down on the ground, and then you've got these massive kind of bubbles or craters that appear, and they deal a lot of damage. So making sure that you're away from them and you've kind of surged away from Zuk means that you're just going to make sure that you're not going to be hit from him whatsoever. Now the next step over here, you can see that I am brewing up. You can see that my health points have actually dropped down to 81 out of 97. So I've actually forgotten to super restore up, but that's no problem because right now I want to make sure that I'm ahead of the game when it comes to the next mechanic, where he will say something else. Say, for example, flame burns within me. He kind of gets his magic ball out and he's going to drop a bomb on you. Now this bomb does actually hit by 5,800, 5,900. Some people say it's irrelevant, you can just tank it. No, don't do that because you'll be low on health points. You're going to have to use a lot more food. Just make sure that your resonance is ready to go, and therefore means that you can hit him. Again, it's not the end of the world if you have to tank that hit, but again, what I'm trying to say over here is that if you can avoid it, even better. Now you might be wondering, why on earth did I just switch ring there? That's because the next one is the infamous pizza phase. A pizza phase because you have got different sort of angles to hit these minions, and these are the same igneous mobs that you had in the regular waves before Zuk. So it follows the same principle. Now, this was a massive tip that was given to me via one of the clanmates that I have, and it was to actually surge to Zuk. The reason I say this is because normally I was running through the flames. It'll make sense very shortly, but what I'm going to explain first is what I do. You can see over here that Zuk repositions me. He kind of teleports me, and because he teleports me, and he's going to be stunning me, I want to use freedom. I use freedom, I then click on Zuk, so my character turns to Zuk, I then surge to Zuk, and it means I can then walk straight to the next mob. If you're going to be running through this, you will find that you will not have enough time to get to the next igneous one, and it means you might run out of time on your second or third phase, and as a result, you'll either get KO'd by Zuk himself, or you'll just burn in the flames. Now, I will showcase some things after, but over here I just want to mention that when you are targeting these mobs, so for example this one requires a stun, so the soul sap, you want to make sure that you've got some of those residual souls left, that you didn't all use them on Zuk, because you're definitely going to need one at least for this guy, and then you're going to need the likes of Bloat or Finger of Death for the second one. just as we did on the waves, as you remember. One thing I would also like to mention is that I always invoke death when attacking these mobs. The reason why is because if you are running behind, it's going to kill them instantaneously and allows you to go to the next mob. Just like that right now, I'm not going to be taking damage in this fire, but if I was, let's say, 2, 3, 5 seconds behind, then I would have been taking damage from the fire, which goes onto this color, this kind of burning red color, or burnt red or orange color, shall I say. And that is what's going to be damaging you a lot. Now, for you to avoid all that damage while you're running around, you can actually use Devotion. Devotion and Pray from Magic will deflect any sort of damage from actually occurring to you, but it does actually is a cause for concern, because if you're having to do that, which I might have to do in later down in this run, I can't actually quite remember, you'll find that you might be running late to the next igneous mob, and as a result means that you might actually fail the challenge anyway. So just bear that in mind. So with this over here, I use Finger of Death rather than Bloat, just because I want to deal some extra damage. I deal Invoke Death, and you can see over here it's going to come in handy and clutch, because I start damaging him, and then you see over here he dies. If I had to stay there, I would then be too late for the next mob and taking damage. You can see over here right there, I took a lot of damage from that fire because I just stepped in it. I was a little bit slow, but that's absolutely fine because I have some food. I can pot up right now while killing this guy, clicking away and making sure that I'm hitting him. Then you can see Invoke Death yet again is very handy. Now, over here, if we look at Zuk, you can see that he's got a little bar on top of him. If that bar gets full, and even if you press the special button as it gets full, it's going to be too late. It's going to be insta-kill. Your Zuk run is over. That can happen. It has happened to me many times in the past, but just bear that in mind. Now, before you get into Zuk, you might have wanted to build up on him. So, for example, building up adrenaline or stacks. You might have wanted to switch to the ring, which I didn't do. And you might have also wanted to switch to Pray from melee before doing all of this. I didn't do it in this run, but you can see over here that I do it after. But it's just worth bearing that in mind that you have a bit of time there just to inflict some extra damage because you would have pre-prepped. Unlike over here, I had to just do it after I was attacking Zuk, which just affects my DPS. Now, yet again, over here, we're going through the same mechanics. He's going to go, you're going to break beneath me, you're going to use freedom, you're going to be then looking at him and still attacking him, using some of your stacks, using some of your souls, because at this point you can. He's going to say suffer. He's going to start hitting you and draining some of your health points. And it's a good point to pot up over here because just in case for the next mechanic you screw up, then you're going to make sure that your health points are up. So yet again, he's going to slam and I'm going to surge away. And then I'm going to, so you can see right here, I'm going to run away. But even though I've surged away, there's a little kind of fracture just between me and him. And that's going to deal quite a bit of damage. And it does do damage. So you just want to walk away a little bit from it so you don't take too much damage. Feel free to eat some of those sailfish that you brought with you because it's just quicker to regen health and saves you from potentially being KO'd. Specifically, if you forget to hit resonance in this part, you will find that Zuk will hit you really hard. For me, I prioritized hitting resonance rather than eating up because I knew that I'll be able to tank the hit. But even I say that, I still get hit. So I'm not really sure what happened there. Maybe the timing was maybe a second off or something, or there was a little bit of lag between the server, but nonetheless, it's just worth bearing that in mind. So as I was just highlighting there, making sure that you have eaten enough and you're potted up enough really saves you from getting to this sort of panic scenario like I am right now and having to eat like crazy while hitting Zuk. And you can see over here, my health points are really low. And I'm just saying, not today. I'm not going to be dying today. I'm going to be eating as much as possible. So now we're going to go again to the same mechanic that we're on to before, which is the pizza phase. So other people online can do this in a singular phase and not have to do a secondary pizza phase. In my case, I had to do 2 or 3 times just because of the DPS I do. Yet again, I'm going to be hitting freedom, targeting Zuk, surging to him, then running to the next igneous mob, then using stun. As you remember, here I forgot to switch from melee to mage. It is very much suggested to go on to mage purely for the pizza phase part, and you can see over here I've realized and I've switched to mage protect, and now I'm getting on to the ranger, hitting him for finger of death, invoking darkness, and then hitting him again. Right now would be a good time to also pot up, which is exactly what I'm doing now, and just making sure that I've got some extra health points so that I don't exactly die if, for example, I was a little bit late, or if these enemies are taking a little bit of time to kill. Now, you can see over here that I had to do my conjures again. That is a bit of a faff because it takes away from the amount of time you need to kill. So in this respect, I use Volley of Souls, and because I've invoked death as well, it means I can dispatch of this enemy pretty quickly. So now we're going to go back to TzKal-Zuk, and you can see over here just before I as I hit, I make sure that the ring is correct. I've switched to melee protect, and I'm vulnerability bombing. Now you should be pretty golden, because if you get to under 100,000 HP for TzKal-Zuk, he's no longer going to do the pizza phase, and he's just instead going to redo these mechanics that he's currently doing. So again, right now we're still above 100,000, so you can see I am using freedom to go from "you will break beneath me," constantly attacking him, using everything I have, making sure that I am only doing Volley of Souls at 3 residual souls, using the Necrosis stacks at 6 on Finger of Death, or if it's on 2 or 4, using the weapon special, and just basically making sure that I'm hitting him as much as possible. You can see over here, it's that sort of suffer mechanic. It's going to be dropping my health points, and in this respect, I'll just be wanting to use a super restore. So there you can see right away that I thought the next mechanic was coming, so I was going to be surging away, but in fact he's doing the "you will break beneath me" mechanic, and that's because he's now dropped under 100,000 health. I didn't actually notice this, so I actually surged away, then realized, oh wait a second, that's not actually happening. Which mechanic we're on? We're on the other mechanic. What's going on? Why am I taking some damage? Oh, it's because there's that typeless damage. Let me hit freedom. And there we go. So now he should go back to Seer, or the Suffer mechanic, and then which basically drains my health points. And you can see over here I'm dropping a vulnerability bomb. I'm again hitting him for everything that I can, just making sure that I can effectively finish him as fast as possible. And yet over here he's going to be dropping his sword, and that's when I'm going to be surging away. Again, you just want to make sure that you are hitting him as much as possible. And again over here you can see he's going to be hitting his mage hit, which is going to hit me for 2,488. I tanked the hit because I know I'm so close to killing TzKal-Zuk, because if he gets under 30,000, my invoke death is going to kick in and do that. And I was just hitting all the food that I could, but then I realized, wait a second, I have just killed him. I've unlocked hard mode and also got my Igneous Stone. I thought the chest was on that side for some reason, but actually it wasn't that. I just lost my bearings. But yeah, there you go. That is TzKal dead. It is actually quite a lot to take in. There's no doubt about it, but the rewards are certainly worth it. In other words, for you to get your TzKal capes, for you to be able to say that you've completed one of the hardest bosses on RuneScape on your own without the assistance of anyone, and actually getting decent loot from it. So there we go. Hopefully this video has been helpful. I know there's been a lot to take in, but hopefully it will give you everything you need to know, and it's been a step-by-step guide of what you need to know with TzKal. If you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments section below, and if you do enjoy these type of guides like I used to do back in the day, then let me know, because hopefully I'll be able to do some more guides like this. Alright guys, I've been Totallydubbed, also known as TzKal-Zuk on RuneScape, and I'll hopefully see you next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.